Now we go to this week's, the second week of September, news and views of the most significance. The first, of course, is a very happy news where China donates 65 million pesos for our wounded Marawi soldiers. This, we pick it up from Sunstar. China has donated 65 million pesos for the wounded soldiers fighting Islamist militants in the strife-torn Marawi city. President Rodrigo Duterte witnessed the turnover of the check from Chinese Ambassador Cao Jianhua to the Armed Forces of the Philippines at the Malacanang Palace. And the Commander-in-Chief was accompanied by Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano, and Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief of Staff General Eduardo Año. In a press statement, Malacanang said Duterte was grateful for China's financial donation for the soldiers who sustained injuries in the ongoing armed conflict in Marawi City. Quote, he also expressed the Filipino people's gratitude for China's continuous assistance to the country during the ongoing rebellion in the Islamic city. He added, in June, China donated 15 million pesos for the rehabilitation of Marawi City. It also granted military aid package that includes rifles and ammunition intended for the counter-terrorism efforts in Marawi City. And on to our next item of great significance on this Myanmar issue. Like India, China too backs Myanmar government on Rohingya issue. From the Times of India, China and India rarely see themselves on the same side, but in the case of Myanmar and the Rohingya issue, it appears they are. Undeterred by the Human Rights Council's criticism of India on the issue a day earlier, because India has its own Rohingya problem, China on Tuesday said it backed the Myanmar administration's efforts to safeguard stability in the ongoing crisis over the Muslim minority Rohingya population there. The current round of troubles in Myanmar began when Rohingya militants under the group ARSA attacked Myanmar security forces in August. Quoting, we condemn the violent attacks which happened in Rakhine State in Myanmar. We think the international community should support the efforts of Myanmar in safeguarding the stability of its national development, unquote. Geng said at a regular news briefing. Rakhine is where most of the Rohingya live. China, like India, is focused on the attacks and the Myanmar government's response to safeguard the country against, quote, extremist forces, unquote. Chinese state media, too, on Monday indicated China's stance by obliquely supporting the Aung San Suu Kyi administration in Myanmar, which is facing near worldwide condemnation for the response to the August attacks by ARSA. But worldwide cannot be complete without India and China. The Indian government's stand is similar. On a recent visit to Myanmar, Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed solidarity with the government there against the, quote, extremist violence, unquote, in the Rakhine State. And moving on, and this is again a positive aspect of the latest developments, China launches World Tourism Alliance. From the Global Times, China has launched an international tourism organization to facilitate international cooperation in and promote the sustainable development of tourism. International tourism is looking forward to a comprehensive non-governmental and non-profit global organization to facilitate international cooperation as more challenges need to be dealt with aside from government-to-government coordination. The Jinzao, head of the China National Tourism Administration, said at the opening ceremony of the World Tourism Alliance, WTA. The UN welcomes the founding of the WTA, said Taleb D. Rifai, Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization, who attended the opening ceremony. He said in May that the world hopes to see China's leadership in tourism. And China has become the largest source of outbound tourism, 105 million tourists from China, going all over the world. More than 13% to global tourism a year. 122 million traveled overseas, my estimate was wrong. It's 122 million, or 10% of the global tourist volume. Based in Beijing, the WTA will promote the concept of, quote, tourism makes a better world, unquote, and has 89 members from 29 countries and regions, including China and the US and France. Okay, and now, do we have any other items? Yeah, China and the Philippines expediting work on cooperative projects. This is from the Philippine or Chinese Embassy in Manila website. China and the Philippines agreed to speed up the working process of cooperative projects, hoping to make vital progress within the year. A Chinese commercial official said here last Saturday. Chinese Commerce Minister Chong San and Philippine economic officials discussed their cooperative projects on the sidelines of the ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting and related meetings in Manila. According to Wu Zhenping, Director General of the Department of Asian Affairs of the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, both sides had concrete discussions on projects such as airports, railways, and irrigation systems included in the 6-year development program for trade and economic cooperation signed by China and the Philippines in March this year. Wu said they agreed to expedite the working process and hope to make significant progress on the projects before the ASEAN Summit in November. The 6-year development program was signed by both countries in March this year, aiming to provide a guide for trade and economic cooperation between China and the Philippines. And moving on, let's see our next item. North Korea proves that it can hit Guam with a fresh missile launch over Japan. Let's see. Tokyo on the nuclear alert as Kim Jong-un fires missile 2,300 miles or 200 miles further than needed to hit U.S. territory. North Korea has fired another test missile over Japan, leading to global condemnation amid already high tensions over Pyongyang's nuclear warhead tests. The missile flew over the northern island of Hokkaido, where thousands were awoken by air raid sirens for the second time in just 3 weeks, and landed some 1,240 miles off the Cape of Erimo just before 7 a.m. local time. The rocket, believed to be an intercontinental ballistic missile, flew for 19 minutes over a distance of 2,300 miles, according to South Korea's military. This is far enough to reach the U.S. Pacific territory of Guam, which is 2,100 miles from North Korea. The missile test was carried out mere hours after North Korea threatened to nuke Japan and reduce the U.S. to, quote, ashes and darkness, unquote, in response to the latest sanctions imposed by the UN, which puts a cap on textile exports and imports of crude oil. Japan's Defense Minister Itsunori Onodera said Friday he believed North Korea has the U.S. territory in mind with its recent nuclear missile tests, as he warned that similar actions by the North would continue. In a statement released by the North Korean news agency KCNA Thursday, a spokesman for the regime said, the army and people of the DPRK are unanimously demanding that the Yankees, chief culprit in cooking up sanctions resolution, be beaten to death as a stick is fit for a rabid dog. The United Nations Security Council sanctions imposed on Monday are the strongest so far, banning the North's textile trade and imposing restrictions on shipments of oil products, among a series of other measures. But analysts expect them to do little to dissuade Pyongyang, which says it needs nuclear weapons to defend itself against the threat of invasion by the United States. And I think the emphasis should be on that last paragraph. Okay, so we move on to our final segment, our focus on Philippine-China relations.